So when I read books in English about B'nai Noach, um, a lot of times it doesn't say B'nai Noach. Sometimes it does in the English, but it usually says Gentile. That's usually how they translate whatever halacha they're reading about the non-Jew, and then they translate that into English, and they say Gentile. And then you just kind of assume it's you because you're not too fluent in Hebrew, like myself, although I um, can understand Hebrew very slowly. But if you're new, you can't go through all this halacha, all this halachot, all these Torah laws and things in a reasonable manner. So you have to rely on others. And a lot of you have felt um, in a like a hint, either a logical hint or some kind of spiritual hint, that something is not right sometimes about these laws. It's just like, man, that's doesn't quite seem right. And then you end up trusting the rabbi and going with him because you don't know any better, and you just want to trust. You feel like you're in a good place. You're studying Torah finally in your life, and you just you have a trust there, right? But still, for some of you, many of you, there's like this splinter in your mind that's just itching at you, and it's like, what is wrong with some of these halachot? One comes to mind that it says in the English translations that a lot of authors quote. They'll say that a Gentile cannot involve himself in Torah, or else he's going to be worthy of death. He's worthy of death if he does so. Also, he can't rest at all on Shabbat, things like this. And it just seems weird, right? So, so I did some research. It was actually a long time ago, but I want to bring it to your guys' attention, and this is what I came up with. So this is my little presentation. Um, it's called Gentile. It's bad translations and multiple meanings of the non-Jew in Torah. So there are non-Jews in Torah. Um, and I'm asserting right now, I'll prove it later, but I'm asserting right now there are bad translations and there's multiple meanings. It just kind of seems that way. So let's continue. So there are non-Jews in Torah, many types of non-Jews actually. Uh, you might think that there are just like one or two types, but in reality there's quite a few. Uh, and we're going to just talk about two of those few types right now, which pertain to B'nai Noach today quite heavily and is a big argument today. And it's kind of where we are at on the global level, the global consciousness of the non-Jews interacting with Jews in Torah. And this is a point that has to be understood before we progress into the redemption, God willing. So we have to understand where we're at, and we have to understand how to get through it. So two of the few major types of non-Jews is the Goy, and in Hebrew there, I have Goy, and then the Ben Noach. Those are the two types of non-Jews that are mentioned in Halacha. The Rishonim a lot of times mention B'nai Noach or Ben Noach. B'nai Noach is the plural form, children of Noah. Ben means son of Noah. Then you have the Goy, and Goy is something that's hard to translate. People translate that as nations, a person that is of a nation or a people. And a lot of people intermingle these two terms synonymously, and they just use the English term Gentile. And a lot of rabbis, a lot of people assume or will tell you, based on their assumptions, that these are interchangeable terms. That the Goy and the Ben Noach are interchangeable, and in the English, we'll just call it the Gentile. So let's see if that's logical and if it's legitimate. So here, yeah. So as I explained, there's this usage of Goy and Ben Noach interchangeably. Can we do that? So here is a problem. Uh, So we have a huge B'nai Noach movement today. People are leaving, whatever. They're becoming more knowledgeable in Torah, right? And they're realizing that there's something called a Ben Noach, which is obvious. Every human being technically is a Ben Noach, is a son of Noah, right? But there's also this halakhic term that you see the Rishonim write, and it's just prevalent. And this is the Ben Noach, or the B'nai Noach. And so, as a Ben Noach, you or a Bat Noach, a daughter of Noah, you're wanting to read halachot that apply to you, laws, Torah laws that apply to you. So you have, so you're reading your B'nai Noach books, and you detect that some things just are not right with the halacha that you run across, right? Something just doesn't quite seem right, but you go with it because things are new to you, and you have the humility to say that, wow, I might not be right on this, and you trust whoever is teaching you about Torah, right? And English readers, particularly if you're not fluent in Hebrew, or if you can't really go through the Hebrew, English readers will particularly not know that there's mutual exclusivity between the Goy halacha in relation to B'nai Noach halacha. In other words, there is Goy halacha and B'nai Noach halacha, or Torah laws that pertain to the Goy, and Torah laws that pertain to B'nai Noach. People don't realize this. Not only that, but rabbis will say, oh, no, that's not true. It's all synonymous. Goy halacha is B'nai Noach halacha. We'll see if that's the case. And so what happens is that through writings and through teaching, the usage of Goy and B'nai Noach and Ben Noach become interchangeable. It's like, oh, wow, okay, it's just in our vernacular, it's all Gentile, right? Goy and B'nai Noach are the same thing. But in the back of your mind, you're thinking, no, that's not the case. Because you know, as a Ben Noach, as somebody who learns Torah and is trying to walk in Torah, you don't see yourself as a Goy. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm not, because I know who I am. I know I'm a Ben Noach, and I know I consider myself different than a Goy, and I'm sure that you do too. So the solution to this is to find where Goy and B'nai Noach halacha have mutually exclusive properties and are therefore not equal. So let's do that. Let's look at the properties of both. Let's try and find properties somewhere in Torah where they have mutually exclusive properties. In other words, if I say all cars are red, and then I give you an object that is green, I can deduce that that green object is not a car, because all cars are red, not green. And that would be a mutually exclusive property in its color. Okay, so in relationship to cars and other objects. If P, then Q, but that does not necessarily mean if Q, then P. In other words, what that means is just because something is red doesn't mean it is a car. But all cars, if you are a car, or you call yourself a car, you are red. So let's find some juxtaposition of this Goy vis-a-vis a Ben Noach. Alrighty, guys. So we're going to get into the halacha. We're going to look in the Mishneh Torah. The Mishneh Torah is a compilation of, not a redaction, but it's a reorganization that makes the present halakhic decisions of the days prominent. It's written by the Rambam. The Rambam took all the halacha from the Talmud and some other places, and he compiled it into what's called the Mishneh Torah. He reorganized it into a more logical level from a certain point of view. It's called the Mishneh Torah. It's volumes and volumes of books, um, and it's really the go-to for a lot of Jewish and non-Jewish halacha. A lot of Jewish halacha people would go to the Shulchan Aruch because it is just for Jews primarily today. But the Rambam writes for all of halacha for non-Jews, for Jews and non-Jews, inside the temple period and outside the temple period. So again, written by the Rambam, Mishneh Torah. This is what's called the Tauger translation. I highly recommend it for anyone who's serious about studying halakha. You can also find it online. You can go to chabad.org and it's the exact same copy. Highly recommend it. Kudos to Tauger for creating this. The problem is I have some critical arguments that I'm going to show you guys about it. I'm highly critical of his usage of non-Jewish terms here. And this volume is Sefer Shoftim, book of judgments, I guess. That's how you would translate that. It's a book, and within the book contains sections called like Hilchot. So you have Hilchot Sanhedrin, and we're going to be, and there's groups of them here. We're going to be reading from Malachim, Hilchot Melachim, the Laws of Kings. Actually, that's a shortened version. It's actually the Laws of Kings in the Wars of the Kings. Right here, as you can see, Hilchot Melachim. Milchomatotechem. I probably didn't even pronounce that right. I have to look that up if that's a hey or a chit. So there are two types of Mishneh Torahs. There's the European version, and then there's the Arabic Muslim world version. Because when the Rambam wrote this, he wrote this when he was in the Arabic world. And when it came to Europe, that's where it was introduced to the printing presses. They might have had printing presses in the Arabic world. I don't know too much, but I do know that when they were introduced into Europe, there were printing presses, and the governments of the time that were led by the Christian governments, the monarchies or whatever government have you, that's in Europe at the time there, they would redact anything that was anti-Christian or sounded anywhere anti-Christian. So it's common knowledge that one of those redacted terms is right here in the Hebrew, and this is the akum. It's an acronym, and it's an acronym that stands for the worshippers of stars and constellations. It's pronounced akum. It's the little double tick mark here. That will tell you right there that something's an acronym in Hebrew. So for instance, Rambam, his name is an acronym. And so in Rambam's name, you're going to see the double tick right there, somewhere in his name, to denote that it's an acronym. And it's like that with, I think, just about every acronym. That's just what it's used to denote. Anyway, so you got this akum. And before I go any further, I'm really sorry. We're in chapter 10, so Hilchot Melachim, and we're in the Rambam's Mishneh Torah, Hilchot Melachim 10:10. Actually, we're in 9. 10's right here. But I just want to give you guys an example here of this akum character, this idol worshiper as the European Mishneh Torah. And the Tauger, just every time that I've noticed, he uses the European versions that are the redacted versions. There's the Arabic version, or not the Arabic, but although they are written in Arabic, but the Muslim world Mishneh Torah, it was not redacted, and he uses different terms here, which we'll look at we'll look at later, it uses a different term. It actually says goy here, which I'll show you guys. So it's interesting. So now that you guys know that, it says goy here instead of akum in the unredacted versions, you kind of want to know what goy is, particularly that we're Bnei Noach, we're searchers of truth. We've came this far. We have a very deep inherent desire to know the truth. That's how we came from whatever it was that we had before, Avodah Zarah, right? So I could read from here. Let's read the English translation. And I want to show you guys, we're going to juxtapose an English translation just to show you guys a juxtaposition here, how it's usually translated by rabbis. Then I'll show you guys later probably a better way. Okay, so here's Hilchot Melachim 10:10, chapter 10, Halach 10. We should not prevent a Gentile, that's usually how it's translated, who desires to perform one of the Torah's mitzvot in order to receive a reward from doing so, provided he performs it as required. If he brings an animal to be sacrificed as a burnt offering, we should receive it. If a Gentile who observes the 7 mitzvot, the brackets here are Tauger's insertion. So I don't know how he knows that yet from the English translation, but let's assume we don't know Hebrew and we just have to go with this. If a Gentile who observes the 7, sounds like a Shomer Sheva mitzvos b'nei Noach, a ben Noach who keeps the 7, right? We should accept it from him. So a non-Jew who gives charity, we should accept it from him. A non-Jew who keeps the 7. It appears to me, and then the Rambam says, whenever the Rambam says it appears to me, he's making a deduction on his own from everything that he knows. So the Rambam says, it appears to me that it should be given to the Jewish poor, for the Gentile may derive, and he says Gentile here, right? So it's kind of confusing. It appears to me that it should be given to the Jewish poor, for the Gentile. If we didn't have these brackets here, he would be using a Gentile and a Gentile, which already shows a logical problem, right? So to get over that logical problem, Tauger says, oh, it's a Shomer Sheva mitzvos Gentile, rather than this Gentile who must not be, which seems pretty accurate, right? You would think so. You would deduce from just what you know. It appears to me that should be given to the Jewish poor, for the Gentile may derive his sustenance from the Jews. Oh, excuse me, no, I skipped ahead. This Gentile is still the same Gentile, right? Because this Gentile may derive his sustenance from the Jews, and they are commanded to support him. So that's very interesting. So now you have Jews who are commanded to support a non-Jew. That's very interesting. Particularly outside of the time of the Yovel year when the Ger Toshav, who's a non-Jew, is not accepted. He's not Makablin. Okay, here we go. This is what I was referring to earlier, so excuse me. In contrast, if an idolater gives charity, we should accept it from him and give it to the Gentile poor. Well, that sounds really, like in the English, it sounds really correct, right? I mean, I don't disagree. You have a non-Jew who keeps the 7. He's able to give tzedakah, and it's given to the Jewish poor because he might derive sustenance, and the Jews have a commandment to sustain him. It's called mitzvah l'chiuso, l'chiuso, or l'chiuto, depending on your pronunciation. Anyways, it's the mitzvah or the commandment to sustain your neighbor, or to sustain your brother who has hard times. You know, he just lost his job and he can't feed his family. You have a commandment for Jews. For other Jews, it's a negative commandment and a positive commandment. There's actually 2 mitzvot involved. For non-Jews, I'm not going to go into detail, but it's just a positive commandment. Um, let's see here. Yeah, so basically you have two types non-Jews here, right? You have a Shomer Sheva Mitzvot B'nai Noach, or appears to be anyways, but we're just going to call it a Gentile who keeps the seven. And then you have another guy called the idolater. And that seems like really correct. It seems correct. So let's look um, in the Hebrew. Let's look in the European version. Let's see what it says first. So Hilchot Melachim 10:10. Now remember, over here it says a ben Noach, or excuse me, it says a Gentile. Okay, so we come over here and it says, oh, okay, so it becomes a lot more clear. You start to understand how Tauger translates it as a Gentile who keeps the seven now, because over here it says a ben Noach that wants to keep the seven, that wants to do the mitzvot, that wants to do mitzvahs that are the mitzvahs in the Torah. In order to receive a reward, he's allowed to, provided he does it properly. If he brings an olah, which is a burnt offering, you receive it from him. And it says here, giving tzedakah, you receive it from him. And then the Rambam says, it appears to me, this is correct. This is all good translation. It appears to me, you go to the poor of Israel. And he says he may derive his sustenance from Israel. And then he goes on to say, the Rambam goes on to say, here it is. It says a mitzvah. It says on the other page, a mitzvah lehem laha chayuto, the mitzvah to sustain him. So that sounds pretty good, right? You're giving tzedakah to Ben Noach is giving tzedakah to the Jewish community, and if something were to happen to that Ben Noach, the Jewish community should turn around and support him. Now the interesting thing, a slight side note, is that you would assume, if you know halakha at least a bit, that the only non-Jews that are really makablin or accepted today are ones that have converted. You are a ger tzedek. That's the only type of non-Jew that's accepted today into the community. However, here you actually have a makablin. It's the same verb as the convert. The ger tzedek, he's makablin, but here you have a ben Noach who's makablin. Not makablin totally, but makablin in this one mitzvah, which is tzedakah, and the mitzvah to sustain him. So this is very interesting, which produces a lot of questions, because you were under the impression that the only type of non-Jews that are accepted, like received today, are going to be the convert. Then he goes on to say here, aval, he says, however, ha'akum, however, the idol worshiper, again, here's the acronym that's redacted in the European versions. We have to look at the original, the Arabic World Version. Okay. It's going to be written in Hebrew in that version, but that's where the Rambam lived at the time. Aval ha'akum, however, the idol worshiper that gives tzedakah, you receive it from him, and you give it to the poor akum, the poor idol worshippers. The big problem I have with Tauger, the critical problem, and overall, I love the Tauger translation, 99% of it, but the fact that I'm not Jewish, I'm very critical when he gets to the non-Jewish words, and I'll show you why. Here, as I've mentioned, it says akum, right? He uses, when he translates akum, over here he calls him the idolater, okay? However, when he gets to akum here, at the end of the sentence, where so for instance it says, however, the akum that gives tzedakah, you receive it from him, but you give it to the akum, the poor akum, right? Well, that sounds logical. But when he translates it over here, he says akum and akum, idolater and idolater, but over here he says idolater and Gentile. He intermingles the two terms. And that's like a really big problem I have when it comes to the Tauger translation. However, there's some logical things that we can now deduce, right? And that is there are two entities, and it doesn't even matter now. You can call them entity A and entity B, or entity X and entity Y. You now have two entities, which is this akum, so let's call this X, and a ben Noach who's Y. You have two entities, say a ben Noach who's Y. He has different properties. He has a different property in this mitzvah l'chiyuso, in this tzedakah. He has a mutually exclusive property compared to this akum character, this X. Okay. So you have X and Y. However you want to say it, 1 and 2, whatever. You don't have to know Hebrew that well to notice that the properties of this entity and the properties of the other entity are mutually exclusive in these properties. Okay. So let's look at the other version of the Mishneh Torah. Here we have another version of the Mishneh Torah. This came from the Muslim Arabic world. That the Rambam resided in. It's called the Sefer Mishneh Torah HaShelem, the complete Mishneh Torah. I got this from Kohot Publishing. Kohos, however you want to pronounce it anyways. And in it contains the what's considered to be the unedited version of the Mishneh Torah. That is not the European version. That was edited, redacted by the censors of the European kingdoms, the Christian European kingdoms. So again, we're in the Mishneh Torah. Sefer Shoftim right here. Sefer Shoftim. And we're going to be reading from Hilchot Melachim 10, chapter 10, parak 10, and Yud. Let's see here. Yud is actually over here. Right here. And so, actually this is small. What I need to zoom in. Hilchot Melachim 10:10. A ben Noach that wants to do the mitzvahs of the Torah, to receive a reward. He's not forbidden to do this, and he, as long as he does it as required. If he brings a burnt offering, we receive it from him. If he gives tzedakah, we receive it from him. And then the Rambam says, it appears to me that this is because his sustenance, he gets it from Israel, and that it's here we go, the mitzvah alehem l'chiyuto, it's a mitzvah to sustain him. So it's a mitzvah for the Israelite, the Bnei Yisrael, to sustain the livelihood of this Ben Noach who's giving tzedakah. Very interesting. Now, if you remember in the European version, for the other entity that is the non-Jew, it'll say the Ben Noach, but then for that other non-Jew, it says what? It said a kum, right? Well, here, that's in the European version, and here it says aval hagoy, however the goy, so it doesn't say however the akum, it says however the goy that gives tzedakah. He's giving that next non-Jewish example. We receive it from him, and it's given to the goyim, the poor goyim. So here you have an equation. You have an equation between the goy, your stam goy. This is just a plain goy. It doesn't say stam, but there's no other adjective. It just says goy. That's giving tzedakah. You have a Ben Noach giving tzedakah, and in the European version, you had a Ben Noach giving tzedakah, and you had the akum giving tzedakah. A lot of people will tell you that the redacted European version, it's redacted and you can't rely on it and it's bad. However, it appears, and I can't prove it just within this text, but you definitely can prove that there's a mutual exclusion between this first non-Jew, a Ben Noach, and the second type of non-Jew, right? One has a mitzvah l'chiuso, and he can give tzedakah to the Jewish poor. The other one gives, and then the Jewish poor, or the Jewish community gives it to the Jewish poor. However, you have the second non-Jew, who, if he gives tzedakah, the Jewish receive it, but they have to give it to the goy poor, this other type, this non-Jewish poor. So the point is, it doesn't really matter what it says. The point is there's a mutual exclusion. Well, it doesn't matter what it says, but what I'm saying is it doesn't matter what noun it uses, because all you have to deduce is that there's this Ben Noach, and he is different than, so this Ben Noach, let's call him A, is different than this non-Jew B. Okay, so there's a mutual exclusion going on here. It's just very interesting. Not only is it just some side notes, I don't want to take too much time and go into it, but people that have a mitzvah l'chiuso, that the Jews have a commandment to sustain them, the non-Jews, it's the ger toshav and above. Very interesting, because the ger toshav is not accepted today. And so some questions, to ask would be, well, what determines whether this non-Jew is a Ben Noach or a goy? If the ger toshav is not received today, if the non-Jew that goes before a court and says he keeps the 7, he's called a ger toshav, right? But because he is not received today, then what type of person is this Ben Noach? How do you receive him? How do you receive him? Does he go before a beis din? If he went before a beis din, wouldn't that be called a ger toshav? Now, I'm not arguing and saying a ger toshav is for today. What I'm arguing for is that there is some kind of non-Jew that is accepted in the Jewish community, in the Jewish world, that is not the ger tzedek, what would be commonly called the convert today. The ger tzedek. You have the ger tzedek and the ger toshav. The ger toshav is not accepted today. The ger tzedek is the full convert. However, we have an exception here, that a Ben Noach, this non-Jew who gives tzedakah, he is received on some level, whether it be his burnt offering or it be a tzedakah. How does the Jews receive him? So this shows that there's mutual exclusion. There's a concept of acceptance without the Yovel year. This is not the acceptance of the ger toshav. This is the acceptance of a Ben Noach, a non-Jew that is coming before the Jewish people and doing a mitzvah. Okay, and it says not so, aval hagoy, not so for the goy, and therefore we know that the goy is not the same in all aspects as the Ben Noach, and therefore the Gentile, the term Gentile, cannot be used without some kind of proof should not be used liberally. There's obviously some very strong mutual exclusions. Um, and this is heavy because every single book that we read talks about non-Jews studying Torah. Can they not? So we have to look up in the original Hebrew what it says, and just to give you guys a heads up on what that says. So in other words, what I'm saying is there's places like in the Divine Code, for instance, there's that says that a Gentile cannot involve himself, like deep involvement. He cannot involve himself, and he's quoting from the Rambam here, but he just mistranslates it, and he says a Gentile cannot involve himself in the study of Torah. That's what the Divine Code says. He can only involve himself in the Sheva Mitzvot. However, if you look in what it says in the original, if you actually go to the citation, okay, it says, what does it say here? Does it say ben Noach? Are you a ben Noach or are you a goy? Because I'm pretty sure right here it says a goy. It says a goy she'asek b'Torah is hayv misa. A goy that involves in Torah is hayv misa. He should not involve except at his 7 mitzvot. Now you might be saying, well, James, that would mean a ben Noach. It's talking about his 7 mitzvot. These are non-Jews. Non-Jews, all non-Jews have the Sheva mitzvot. So all non-Jews are accountable for at least the 7. It's just the way it's just the way our souls are designed. And so the goy has 7 mitzvot, and so does the ben Noach by definition. It appears to me, and I'm not going to go into detail in this video, it appears to me that this goy is the idolater. This goy is the akum. Okay. We can go into that detail later, but for right now, it appears that the Tauger's English translation, he pretty much gets it right. He kind of butchers it up a bit, but when it comes to the akum, he's saying that this goy, this akum is, or this non-Jew here is the akum, and then there's this ben Noach who's the shomer sheva, the keeper of the 7 mitzvot. Okay, so just to reiterate. The goy, the akum, and the ben Noach are not the same. Don't fall for the teaching that all non-Jews can come under the umbrella term of Gentile, because they can't. Have a rabbi clarify what he says and know the material. Know what it is that's going on here. Nobody's going to do it for you. And if they do it for you, they might have ulterior motives, and who knows what those motives are. They could be good, they could be bad, they could want to do the right thing, but they're just teaching it wrong. Who knows? The point is you have to go in and learn it yourself, because you have to ultimately know the wisdom. The whole reason, I shouldn't say the whole reason, but the big purpose of Torah is to gain wisdom. Okay, it is to increase and not decrease in your knowledge of Hashem. Okay, to attach yourself to Hashem and be an extension of Him, because you already are. Hasidus teaches that you are an extension of Hashem at some level. Okay, and if you want to increase and actually be a good extension, you have to know this. You have to know Torah. You have to understand and consume and involve yourself in Torah so that you can have the wisdom. Okay. The reason why Goyim, this is my opinion, the reason why Goyim are forbidden to involve themselves in Torah is because they have to do the 7 first. The 7 are a purification process. The 7 are a purification process to purify your attributes, your animal soul attributes. And once those are purified, then you can start getting into the intellectual. Then you can start learning things in depth beyond that. But you have to do the 7 first. So with that, I'm going to wrap up with my notes, and that'll be the text. So we looked at the juxtaposition in the Mishneh Torah, the halacha, of two types of non-Jews, the Goy vis-a-vis the Ben Noach, and we contrasted them um, and made sure that they were mutually exclusive. So no longer do we have this assertion, now we have proof, excuse me, that there's a Goy, a non-Jew Goy, and a non-Jew Ben Noach, and we know properties about them. We know that if the Goy gives tzedakah, it's given to the Goy poor, and it doesn't appear that there's a mitzvah l'chiyuto for the Goy. And however, for the Ben Noach gives tzedakah too. However, when he gives it to Jews, when he gives it to Israel, he gives it the Israelites or the Jews give it to the Israelite poor, the Jewish poor. And we know that it is a mitzvah l'chiyuto to sustain this Ben Noach. Very interesting. So we now proved that it's just logic that they're mutually exclusive. The Goy and the Ben Noach are not the same thing, and they should not be used interchangeably unless specifically stated and proved. Therefore, the Goy and the Ben Noach are mutually exclusive in at least some properties. They are not the same. They cannot be interchanged without some kind of logical explanation. And specifically in this case, they cannot be, according to the Rambam, in these instances, such as tzedakah. And you always need to check the sources, whenever you see Gentile in the English, always check the sources and see whether it refers to the Goy or whether it refers to a Ben Noach or some other kind of non-Jew. But the truth is, you have to do this. You have to research it yourself. So some questions to ask yourself and others is that if the Goy halacha and the Ben Noach halacha are mutually exclusive, then why is Goy halacha being pushed on Bnei Noach today? You read it a lot in Bnei Noach books. Hilchot Melachim, for instance, Hilchot Melachim 10:9, which is the very previous verse of 10:10, as I shown, says a Goy that involves himself in Torah is worthy of death. This does not say Ben Noach. It explicitly does not say Ben Noach. It's referring to the Goy. Now, some rabbis will say, well, you can still study, you just can't involve. That's fine, but still, they're kind of making it up because there's no hilchot, there's no halacha that says for Ben Noach. It's talking about a Goy. This is a Goy that involves himself in Torah is worthy of death. It goes on to say you should only be involved in the 7 mitzvot. That's fine. The point is that it's talking about a Goy. It's not talking about a Ben Noach. It does not say Ben Noach. And if it is talking about a Ben Noach, then the burden of proof is on whoever's teaching you that. And I've never found that yet in halacha. Another question. Since only a ger toshav is officially received, the Hebrew word is makablin today, how does one receive makablin and confirm a human being is a Ben Noach rather than a Goy? So Hilchot Melachim 10:10 says if a Ben Noach gives tzedakah or if a Goy gives tzedakah. However, how do you know? You know that this person's giving tzedakah, but how do you know whether it's a Ben Noach and how do you know it's a Goy? A logical person would say, well, you bring him before a court or whatever, and just to confirm. Well, the problem with that is the reception of a non-Jew who takes upon the Sheva mitzvot, that's usually the definition of receiving a ger toshav, makablin ger toshav. That's how you receive a ger toshav. So it seems to suggest, the Rambam seems to suggest that there is a distinguishing marker between non-Jews, whether they are a Ben Noach, whether they keep the 7, or whether they are a Goy. And again, I'm assuming that he's referring to a Ben Noach as a non-Jew who keeps the 7. We haven't really proved who a Ben Noach is, but it's kind of can be assumed, right? And we haven't really shown any more properties. We haven't proved what a goy is. So we're going to have to look at more halachot to see what a ben noach is and what a goy is. And that's for another time. Another question would be and then that leads to the next question, which what are distinct properties of what are halachot or just anything you can find of properties for bnei noach vis-a-vis the goy. What is a ben noach in relationship to the Jews compared to a goy in their relationship? For instance, I'm not gonna show you guys, but it says goy. The Jews are not allowed to help or hinder a goy that's in a pit. If a goy is trapped in a pit, a Jew is not obligated to help him in any way and not hinder him in any way. For instance, if he's in a pit, you don't give him a ladder and you don't take a ladder away from him. However, um, somebody like a ger toshav, a non-Jew, like let's say a ger toshav, it is a mitzvah to help that person. In other words, this is an example of the mitzvah lichich yuso, the commandment to help him in his time of need. And the Rambam is saying that the Ben Noach, the Bnei Israel, have a mitzvah to sustain the life of a Ben Noach. That's something we can get into later. But that's just one of the differences, that an example of these properties that we have to pursue. These are the times that we live in. If a rabbi or somebody else is teaching you other things, you need to really ask him, get into the source. If something doesn't sound right, say, I want to see the source for that. And you'll know, it'll say whether it's a ben noach, a goy. It might say nochri, which is something else we can talk about in another video. You have to know what these nouns are in Hebrew. You don't have to be fluent in Hebrew. You just have to know these symbols. All languages are symbols that represent something in the subjective mind of a human being. They're objective, symbolic representations to represent things in the subjective mind of the communicator and the receiver of that communication. So just keep studying, dig into the sources, guys. Ask questions. That's how you'll begin in wisdom. So thanks for listening. I hope you guys understand now that there is a difference between a ben noach and a goy, and that there are different types of Gentiles. And whenever you read a book in English and it says Gentile, look it up. Look and figure out what it actually says. Is it really talking about you, a ben noach, or is it talking about the goy? Figure out what you are. Figure out if you are a ben noach. Figure out if you are a goy. These are important. You have to know where you are in your relationship with Hashem, not just in the subjective consciousness of yourself, but also objectively, how others see you. You have to test yourself. So with that, have a good Shabbat, and hopefully we'll be producing some more videos like this.